There are genuine gangsters and criminals. And then there are posers, fakes, and wannabes trying to get clout and make a name for themselves and in a world they don't belong. In this video, we will show the top 5 wannabes who have messed with the wrong crime syndicates and come away regretting their life choices. Clavel Moreno was a charming, two-faced, conniving individual. Originally from Venezuela, he was connected to the Sinaloa cartel and would be frequently used to traffic drugs for the cartel. Although connected, Moreno was not a loyal member. He had no intention of being a member for life or committing to the cartel above all else. His arrogance and greed would eventually cause his brutal downfall. Moreno had seduced a young woman named Guadalupe Lea Serrana. Guadalupe had 2 young children from a previous husband, and they had run off together. Seems innocent. However, the problem for Moreno was that Guadalupe's former partner was a high-ranking member of the cartel. Moreno knew this, and although at one point in time he may have been genuinely interested in his relationship with Guadalupe, it is more likely that the reason he pursued her was that she had access to her former partner's bank accounts and stash of cash from his ill-gotten gains. It was the late 70s, and the money Moreno was targeting was a small fortune in excess of $7 million. There was plenty of time for him to manipulate and use Guadalupe to access the money, as her partner was sentenced to 8 years in an American prison for drug trafficking. After living a life of luxury with another man's family, it is alleged that Guadalupe had become fearful of her husband finding out while in prison and sending men after her and her children. She wanted to end the relationship and try to make things right with her husband. Moreno did not accept this. Knowing that he would become the target of her ex-husband, he took matters into his own hands. One night inside a hotel room in San Francisco, Moreno strangled Guadalupe to death. This brutal attack was only the beginning of Moreno's murderous rampage. After leaving the body in the hotel, he took Guadalupe's 2 young children against their will, drove them to Venezuela, where he would throw them off a bridge, killing them both. Moreno's actions sent shockwaves through the cartel world at the time. He thought he would be feared and respected amongst the criminal world. He thought it was a power move that could catapult him up the chain of power inside the Sinaloa cartel. In reality, what it did was create an enemy much more powerful than him, more connected, and now hell-bent on revenge. After being released from prison, Hector Luis Palma, a former co-leader of the Sinaloa cartel, would focus his network and reach on finding the killer of his family. He originally suspected his former boss Miguel Gallardo of the crimes and targeted people connected to him. This sparked a conflict between the 2 factions and resulted in multiple executions on both sides. Eventually, Palma found out the truth of who the killer was, with the motivating factor being greed that enraged Palma, who would begin searching far and wide for Moreno. Moreno was on the run and had returned to his native Venezuela. Palma's reach and connection through South America allowed him to track down Moreno. A thirst for blood, Palma disposed of anyone he found that had a connection to Moreno. The violent rampage took the lives of several people, including his friends, family members, and also his landlord. After Moreno was found, Palma chose not to have him killed on the spot. Instead, he took a much more calculated and sadistic approach. Palma had Moreno arrested and placed into Gaddaca's prison, which the cartel maintained control. Moreno was set upon by inmates, brutally raped, stabbed, and even castrated before being left to die. His body would be discarded like a piece of trash, used as a message to any who crossed the cartel or Palma. A world of violence and cruelty, with some trying to make it to the top and others merely trying to survive. Moreno never belonged. A man motivated by greed who became a woman and child murderer ultimately met his fate in one of the most brutal ways imaginable. Not only did his horrific actions cause his own death, but also the death of numerous others around him, including his own family. It's hard to argue that Moreno didn't deserve what happened to him, but his story also serves a lesson to those involved or contemplating becoming part of that life. Don't cross the wrong person, or you may end up like Moreno. The next person on our list was a promising up-and-comer on TikTok. With the world seemingly at his feet, who knows what he would have become if only he avoided making his fatal mistake. In the world of TikTok fame, being entertaining is often enough. But some influencers, they want more. They want to be feared, respected, feeding off the aesthetics of gang life without truly living it. This next individual goes by the alias Swavy, real name Matima Miller, a TikTok star with over 2 million followers, known for his dance videos, charm, and swagger. He was on his way to having it all: popularity, money, fame, influence. But unfortunately for Swavy, on July 5, 2021, he was gunned down in broad daylight. At just 19 years old, tragically his life ended not on the screen, but in the street. And while many painted him as a victim of senseless violence, rumors began to surface around Swavy and a potential second life, a life that suggested he did more than just play gangster on TikTok. He may have been trying to turn his on-screen persona into a real-life experience. In doing so, he may have created some unwanted enemies. Fame can come quickly, especially in today's digital world. In just a few months, you can go from unknown to viral to gone.
Swavy, real name Matima Miller, wasn't a rapper. He wasn't a known gang leader. He was a TikTok star, dancing his way to millions of followers with a boyish grin, quick feet, and a carefree swagger. But in the streets of Wilmington, Delaware, his swagger was not appreciated by all, and for whatever reason, his disapprover decided to show their displeasure through violence. Swavy wasn't a real gangster, but some say he played one online. Perhaps he played the gangster role too well, and that performance may have cost him everything. Born in 2002, Matima Miller came of age in a city better known for its crime rate than its content creators. Wilmington, Delaware is small, but it's not soft. In the years leading up to Swavy's death, it consistently ranked among the most dangerous small cities in America, particularly for youth gun violence. This wasn't Los Angeles. This wasn't Miami. This was a city where social media clout didn't mean you were safe. Swavy started his content journey on TikTok, and like many during the pandemic, he blew up fast. His page, under the username @babyface_s, featured smooth dance challenges, comedic skits, stylish outfits, and plenty of confidence. His moves were clean, his smile was magnetic, and his fanbase was exploding. By mid-2021, Swavy had racked up 2.7 million followers on TikTok alone, with tens of millions of views across his content. To many, he was just a fun-loving entertainer. But if you paid attention, you could see a shift. As Swavy's fame grew, so did his presentation. More videos started appearing with hood aesthetics, gang-like hand signs, subtweets about ops, and cryptic messages alluding to beef. He wasn't unique in that. Social media is flooded with teens emulating the image of street culture, especially when it's wrapped in viral success. But in places like Wilmington, that image carries real weight. And once you wear it, people start to expect you to live it. Swavy was dancing in designer clothes, but he was also dancing with danger. And while many of his fans saw a charismatic TikToker, others, people closer to the ground, began to question, is he just a dancer, or is he acting tough for clicks? This question started gaining him haters for the first time instead of fans. Maybe it was a strategy. Everyone knows controversy brings eyeballs to your content. Swavy probably thought no one would take him seriously, especially not serious enough to attack him. But maybe he had underestimated the gang scene in Delaware and how serious some of these gang members are. Did Swavy have criminal ties? Let's be clear, Swavy was not officially linked to any gang. There's no confirmed criminal record, no arrests for drugs or weapons, and no verified gang affiliation in public databases. But that doesn't mean he wasn't surrounded by it, immersed in the culture, or affiliated with known gang members. Multiple reports and rumors suggest that Swavy had friends and associates tied to neighborhood cliques and local gangs. And in cities like Wilmington, these associations aren't always optional. You grow up with people. You rep your block. You post one too many things online, and now you're in the game, even if you didn't ask to play. And Swavy? He might have been too deep into the image to pull back. On July 5th, 2021, just before 11 a.m., gunshots rang out in the 800 block of Elbert Place. Police arrived to find 19-year-old Swavy bleeding out from a gunshot wound. He was rushed to the hospital but was unable to be saved.
He was pronounced dead that afternoon. Almost immediately, speculation exploded. Was it gang-related? Was it jealousy? Was it random? But police would later confirm what many already suspected. This wasn't a random act. This was a targeted hit. The shooter was identified as Tamir Scott, also 19 years old. Not a fellow influencer, not a rival TikToker, just another young man caught in the spiral of personal beef and real-world consequence. Scott turned himself in and was charged with first-degree murder and weapons offenses. According to sources close to the case, Swavey and Scott knew each other. There were rumors of ongoing tension, possibly over a personal disagreement or something Swavey posted online. Whether it was a perceived insult, a social media jab, or a deeper grudge, we may never know. But what's clear is this: Swavey was targeted, not for his content, but for the persona behind it. So, was Swavey a fake gangster? Swavey wasn't selling drugs. He wasn't posting rap lyrics about killing people. He wasn't flashing bricks of cash or threatening ops by name. But he did post content that flirted with that image. The bravado, the coded language, the visual cues. He wasn't a criminal, but he was building a brand that borrowed from the aesthetic of criminals and Delaware gang culture. And in communities like Wilmington, that's more than dangerous. It's provocative. You don't just attract fans when you pose as someone you're not. You attract enemies. Not just online haters and keyboard warriors, but enemies willing to get their hands dirty and take real-life actions. Whether it was youth, naivete, arrogance, pure bad luck, or a combination of all, Swavey was unjustifiably targeted and in no way deserved his life to be brought to an end at just 19 years of age. Swavey's death sent shockwaves through TikTok, Instagram, and the influencer community. Fans mourned, creators paid tribute. Some questioned the violent environment he came from. Others blamed the culture of fake street personas being sold online to young, impressionable audiences.
But his story is deeper than a cautionary tale. It's a modern parable of clout, ego, and image. Because once the line between performance and persona disappears, so does your protection. Matima Miller, known to the world as Swavey, should have had years to grow, online and offline. He wasn't a gangster. He was a young man trying to build his profile in the lucrative new age online influencer environment. But the lesson here isn't just about Swavey. It's about what happens when you try to pretend you're about a life that you have no involvement in, a life full of individuals willing to commit acts of violence to anyone they feel disrespects them. Because in the influencer world, fame just isn't enough. You constantly need to find new ways to stay relevant and keep the fans coming back. Using controversy can be a good strategy, until someone with a real gun, a real grudge, and no care for views decides they've been disrespected and had enough of your videos. Swavey played with a look. He danced around a lifestyle. He performed a part. But in cities like Wilmington, where reputation is currency, the streets don't care how many likes you have. They care who you disrespected, who you stood next to, and who's watching. Swavey wasn't a gangster. He just looked like one. And someone decided that was enough. Mexican drug cartels are known for their violence, intimidation, and brutal fear tactics to gain control of territory and drug routes. Some people are shot, some are stabbed, and some are kidnapped and tortured. The method in which you are murdered often is dictated by the severity of the wrongdoing in the eyes of the cartel. So, what would cause a person to be beheaded? What could they have done to deserve such a brutal death? The answer is probably less shocking than you may think. In the case of Martin Alejandro Cota Monroy, his crime was stealing and lying to El Chapo's PEI Estatales cartel. Monroy was a Mexican national who stole 400 pounds of a marijuana shipment destined for the U.S. Not only had Monroy made the mistake of stealing from the cartel, but he then made a second fatal mistake of lying about it. He had told his bosses that the Border Patrol had seized the product. Monroy wasn't a criminal mastermind by any stretch of the imagination. He had no rational plan of how to sell the large amount of stolen drugs. He just thought he would be rich and no longer need to be part of the life anymore. Monroy also made the mistake of thinking that laying low in the United States would protect him from the cartel. How very wrong he was. The sicarios were sent from Mexico to find him and not only kill him, but make an example of him to deter other wannabe thieves. On the evening of October 10, 2010,
Monroy was relaxing at his apartment complex in Chandler, Arizona, when these sicarios spotted him. They weren't strangers to Monroy, which allowed them to approach him. Misleading him into thinking they were friends, Monroy was unaware of what they were tasked to do. The sicarios accompanied Monroy back to his apartment, where they would create a crime scene so disturbing it would send shockwaves through the police force, community, and the United States as a whole. Cartel violence had not made its way across the border in this magnitude, and concerns of it reoccurring were palatable. Monroy was stabbed and beaten so badly, even the hardest of police officers who thought they had seen it all were visibly affected by what they saw. Not only had Monroy been beaten, the perpetrators had also beheaded him. Monroy's head was found several feet from the body when police arrived at the scene. The message was clear and sent to not only enemies of the cartel, but also their own soldiers and employees. Don't steal from the cartel. It's not a mistake you can make twice and get away with. The FBI is on the hunt. Not for a serial killer, not for a rogue spy, but for a man who thought it was a great idea to steal 50 grand from the Mexican drug cartel Delorsti, or CDN, then brag about it over the phone. Only 2 hours later, he disappeared. This is the story of Eric Tato Ramirez, a man who learned, very quickly, that invisible borders don't stop bullets and don't stop the cartel, and that when it comes to Mexican cartels, there are no second chances. In Laredo, Texas, March 24, 2023, a border city, close enough to Mexico that you can smell the cartel influence in the air, but technically still safe in the United States. Or so Ramirez thought. Eric Ramirez was on the phone with a woman. Nothing suspicious, just your standard flirty back and forth. Until he drops a bombshell. He tells her that he's just stolen $50,000 from Cartel del Noreste, CDN. CDN, for the unfamiliar, is not a group that issues polite cease and desists. They're a blood-soaked offshoot of Los Zetas, a cartel founded by former Mexican special forces. These guys don't just kill, they perform executions. Public beheadings, dismemberments, dangle lifeless bodies from bridges. You get the picture. So naturally, Eric did what any rational person would do after robbing them. He laughed, said he was fine, then headed to the US where he thought he would be safe, protected, untouchable. A fatal mistake made by a one-time wannabe gangster. Just a couple of hours later, a blue pickup truck pulls up to his residence. Inside, a group of masked, heavily armed men. They don't knock. They don't talk. They break down the door, grab Ramirez, and drag him out screaming. Neighbors watched, but no one intervened. Because everyone knows, when the cartel comes knocking, you don't answer, you hide. They shoved Ramirez into the truck and drove straight to the Juarez-Lincoln International Bridge, the gateway from Laredo, Texas, into Nuevo Laredo, Mexico, from American jurisdiction to cartel territory. Surveillance cameras catch a chilling moment. Ramirez, bloodied and panicked, manages to force the truck door open. He throws himself onto the pavement, hard, a desperate attempt to save his own life. I wonder if it was before, during, or after Ramirez found himself rolling along the pavement that he realized he had made a terrible mistake. For one split second, he might have thought he had a chance of escaping. But then, one of the kidnappers jumps out, runs to him, and drags him back. The truck door slams shut, and just like that, Ramirez is gone. Across the border, into the void, a place where very few resurface. Now, what happened after that? Without knowing for sure, based on the reputation of the CDN, who aren't known for their compassionate negotiation, there was no ransom demand, no hostage videos, just silence. Ramirez had vanished into cartel territory, possibly tortured, dismembered, beheaded, perhaps all of the above. A warning to those arrogant enough to steal from a cartel. Once in cartel territory, the FBI was out of reach. So was US law. So was mercy. Back in Texas, Ramirez's sister and girlfriend realized something was horribly wrong. They contacted authorities. The FBI stepped in. They moved fast, and soon arrested a man named Jonathan Gabriales. Gabriales had ties to CDN and knowledge of Ramirez. And under questioning, Gabriales confirmed what most already suspected. Ramirez had stolen from the cartel, and this was the consequence. But Gabrieles's arrest didn't bring Ramirez back, and it didn't change the grim reality. When cartels get their hands on you, you don't usually get found, at least not all in one piece. CDN doesn't just punish betrayal, they showcase it. Their executions are messages. Ramirez's disappearance? A loud and bloody one. Here's the tragic twist. Eric Ramirez wasn't a cartel boss. He wasn't some kingpin. He, like others in this video, was a small-time operator who got greedy and then arrogant, allowing his judgment to be clouded in the pursuit of a small-time score. He thought geography could save him. He thought law enforcement would protect him. He thought, wildly, that he could steal from one of the most brutal cartels in Mexico and laugh about it. I think the laughter stopped as soon as the cartel knocked on his door. When you mix youth, arrogance, and naivete with a dash of wannabe gangster, you end up with a fatal recipe for disaster. Our final and most reckless person on the list is young Mexican influencer, El Pirata de Culiacan. He made the mistake of not just disrespecting a small-time gangster, he mocked one of the most violent and unforgiving drug cartels in the world. Juan Luis Lagunas Rosales was born in 1999 in the small town of Navolato, Sinaloa, Mexico, a region infamous for producing cartel legends like El Chapo and El Mayo Zambada. Abandoned by his father and raised by his grandmother, Pirata didn't come from money or connections. He didn't have a criminal background. What he did have was charisma, an infectious energy, and a phone. By the time he was 15, Pirata was already going viral on Facebook and YouTube for his over-the-top drinking videos, chugging bottles of vodka, hurling slurred insults, falling over laughing. He played the wild narco youth role to perfection. The name El Pirata de Culiacan roughly translates to the Pirate of Culiacan, a city deeply intertwined with Sinaloa cartel activity. It wasn't just a name, it was a brand, and people couldn't get enough. Pirata didn't rap, he didn't vlog about luxury. His content was raw, chaotic, and recklessly real. He would go on camera, often shirtless, surrounded by friends, chugging tequila, trash-talking, and screaming catchphrases like "Puro pirata, plebes," which translates to "straight pirate, boys." He wasn't acting tough, he was acting drunk. But behind the stunts was a clear pattern. Pirata was idolizing cartel culture, mimicking narcos in his language, behavior, and attitude. He was partying like a kingpin. Without realizing it, he was towing a very dangerous line. As his video spread, his followers exploded. Hundreds of thousands of fans across Mexico and the US began sharing his clips, quoting his slurred lines, and treating him like a meme-worthy folk hero. But there's a dangerous truth in Mexico. Cartel culture isn't a costume. There's no pretending to be part of the cartel life. You're in or you're not. Despite the image he put out, Pirata was not affiliated with any cartel. He wasn't running drugs. He wasn't smuggling weapons. He was a teenager, playing the part. But Mexico's underworld isn't known for nuance. If you act like a narco, talk like a narco, and mock narcos, you become part of the game. And the people in the cartel world don't like being mocked, don't like being disrespected. Pirata's behavior went from reckless to suicidal in late 2017 when he posted a video mocking Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, aka El Mencho, the leader of the CJNG, Jalisco New Generation Cartel, one of the most violent and unforgiving drug cartels in the world. El Mencho me la pela, translating to El Mencho can suck it. He said it with a grin, a bottle in hand, probably thinking it was just another viral joke. Even though it was meant as a joke, it was about a man you shouldn't joke about. He's one of the most powerful and dangerous drug lords on earth, known for mass executions, torturing rivals, and even downing military helicopters. His cartel, CJNG, is notoriously sensitive to disrespect. They don't send warnings. They prefer to send death squads. So when a teenager with no affiliations, no backing, and no sense of self-preservation starts mocking their leader on Facebook, it's not just stupid, it's fatal. And Pirata had no clue what he had just triggered. On December 18, 2017, Pirata was attending a party at Menta Tu Cantaros, a bar in Zapopan, Jalisco, right in the heart of CJNG territory. At around midnight, 4 armed men stormed into the bar. They didn't hesitate. They headed straight for the bathroom where Pirata had been hiding. He was shot over 15 times. No mercy, no warning, just a brutal execution in front of witnesses. It's possible Pirata didn't even know he had a target on his back and had no idea why he was approached and murdered. The message was loud and clear. This is what happens when you disrespect a real gangster and cartel boss. Although no one was officially charged, Mexican authorities and investigators widely believe the hit was ordered by CJNG, directly in response to Pirata's video mocking El Mencho. No trial, no arrest, no justice for his family, just a murder and silence. Very common in the cartel-dominated areas of Mexico. In narco culture, justice is swift and silent, and if you're a fake gangster pretending for likes, you don't get to play victim. You become a message to anyone else who would dare disrespect the cartel. Pirata's death was covered across Latin America, with headlines ranging from mournful tributes to outright mockery. Some called him a tragic figure, a teenager who didn't understand the world he was parodying. Others called him a fool who got exactly what was coming. The truth? He was both. He glorified violence, drank like a narco, bragged like a cartel boss, but had no power, no protection, and no understanding of the stakes. His youth and naivety were key factors in his death, an undeserved tragedy. Pirata wasn't a killer. He wasn't a dealer. He was a kid chasing clout in the most dangerous way imaginable. He died not because of what he did, but because of what he pretended to be. Pirata's story isn't just about one person. It's about a growing culture where cartel imagery is celebrated, shared, and turned into entertainment. From TikTok trends glorifying sicarios to rap videos featuring cartel aesthetics, young people are being fed a fantasy of power, money, and violence. But in places like Mexico, that fantasy has real consequences. Pretend to be a gangster in the wrong city, say the wrong thing, or wear the wrong symbol, and you might get a very real response. El Pirata de Culiacan wasn't the first, and he won't be the last. The pursuit of fame, money, and clout will continue to lure young wannabe influencers into a role that could have deadly consequences. So the next time someone posts a clip, bottle in hand, screaming narco slogans for views, remember Pirata.
If you're thinking of mocking someone on social media, take Pirata's story as a warning, and be careful who you mock. Perhaps stick to entitled and annoying celebrities instead of notorious cartel bosses. Thanks for watching. If you like this story and want to hear more, please like and subscribe.